So Tucker Carlson is now currently no longer on Fox News.
In an attempt to disguise their inherently bourgeois and reactionary ideology as something proletarian and anti-imperialist, fascists will often resort to strategic implementation of populist rhetoric. This populism is not based in a class analysis, but rather is filtered through a patriotic, chauvinistic, and reactionary framework. Case in point, the fascistic propaganda perpetuated by Tucker Carlson, who was recently fired from Fox News. Carlson has a long history of promoting overtly reactionary sentiments. Many of them were incredibly and overtly racist, whether it was his promotion of the Great Replacement myth, a racist conspiracy theory that immigration would lead to the replacement of the white population, or his comments that Iraqis were uncivilized, primitive monkeys in a same radio interview where he credited the white race with the creation of civilization. He also downplayed or outright denied police brutality towards the black community and framed the Black Lives Matter movement as violent and destructive while calling white supremacy a hoax in the aftermath of the El Paso Walmart shooting conducted by a fascist white supremacist named Patrick Crusius, where Crusius aimed to start a race war by killing as many Latino people as he possibly could. Tucker Carlson called the fascists who tried to initiate the coup on January 6, 2021, sightseers, and argued that it was a false flag attack, a common trope amongst right-wing conspiracy theorists. In addition to his overt racism, Carlson has also made misogynistic and bigoted statements towards women and towards the LGBT community, calling the transgender community a quote-unquote cancer on the country, and calling for violence against teachers attempting to educate their students on gender orientation. Throughout this bigoted rhetoric, Carlson engaged in the same manner of conspiratorial reactionary populism and fascistic propaganda that occurs throughout the MAGA movement, appealing to the most backward, counter-revolutionary, and reactionary elements of the American working class, who support white supremacy, the suppression of women's rights and LGBT rights, and the persecution and deportation of immigrants. They also argue for the continuation of bourgeois domination over American society and the world as a whole. Populism as a concept is nebulous and disassociated from any class analysis, including a proletarian class analysis. In this manner, fascists will use populist rhetoric to mask their fundamentally bourgeois and reactionary ideology behind a thin veneer of rhetoric, which, to the ignorant masses and to the right opportunists, sound just proletarian enough to pass itself off as something critical of the establishment, while in actuality the sort of reactionary populism promoted by Carlson and by the MAGA movement is a counter-revolutionary tendency which is vehemently opposed to anything remotely resembling socialism or proletarian consciousness. The dangers of populism lies in its divorce from genuine proletarian consciousness and its weaponization by fascists who wish to promote ideas and rhetoric which is proletarian in aesthetics but bourgeois in function. Due to this eclecticism and opportunism, reactionary populism is the enemy of the proletariat and must be opposed by Marxists wherever it manifests. The reactionary populist rhetoric of Tucker Carlson is just as much proletarian as the rhetoric of Benito Mussolini or Adolf Hitler. Just as these fascist movements in the past were fundamentally opposed to socialism and wholeheartedly supported the dictatorship of the bourgeoisie, the rhetoric of Tucker Carlson is exposed for the sham that it is. Principled Marxists will spot this attempt at disguise from a mile away and will rightfully denounce Carlson and the rest of the MAGA movement as a fascist tendency that must be opposed. There is, unfortunately, a rampant idiocy within the American Communist movement that seeks to align itself with Tucker Carlson and the MAGA movement. They are either too ignorant to realize the shallow and vacuous nature of Carlson and Trump's reactionary populism, or they deliberately realize this and seek to disguise themselves as Marxists for the time being. Either way, they are the useful idiots of the fascist movement and serve the interest of the bourgeoisie and of imperialism. If the MAGA movement takes power in this country, MAGA Communist will only be used as a means to an end to enable the fascists to masquerade as proletarian. However, like Otto Strasser in Nazi Germany, they will be purged once they have outlived their usefulness. These right opportunists abandon Marxism, that is, true Marxism, and become caricatures of Marxists who attack and suppress genuine Marxism while serving the interest of the fascist parasites. This parasitism also manifests within the anti-imperialist movement, as well as these pseudo-Marxists promote Campism and call it anti-imperialism. Again, we have to ask ourselves, are they just stupid or are they deliberately malicious? I've spoken much about Campism and how it cheers for lesser imperialism's victory over greater imperialism. This is often accompanied by cries for a multipolar world of competing imperialist blocs, rather than desiring the defeat of imperialism wherever it occurs. These right opportunists cheer for the victory of Russia over Ukraine. Do they not realize that Putin and Zelensky are both imperialists? Do they not realize that the government of the Russian Federation is a mafia state controlled by the Russian bourgeoisie and not socialist in any way whatsoever? While they cheer for the victory of Russian imperialism in Ukraine, they denounce NATO imperialism and the puppet regime of Zelensky. Principled communists realize that imperialism, greater and lesser, must be opposed and support the working classes of both Ukraine and Russia, and recognize that whichever side wins in this war, the working class of both countries lose and pay the price for the machinations of the imperialists in Moscow, Kiev, and Washington. A true anti-imperialist movement in this country would call for peace and for an end to the imperialist regimes in Russia and Ukraine, with the desired outcome being the re-establishment of socialism in both countries being the only way to stop imperialism from manifesting in the region again. Anything short of that would lead back to the conditions which created this war in the first place. Capitalism breeds imperialism, and only socialism can stop the development of imperialism. These right opportunist pseudo-Marxists regard Tucker Carlson as an anti-imperialist because he is critical of Ukraine and supportive of Russia. Once again, they confuse, either deliberately or out of ignorance, the campist tendency with genuine anti-imperialism. Once again, the MAGA Communists reveal that they have no idea what they're even talking about, and that no one should take their claims of opposing imperialism seriously. The notion that Carlson is an anti-imperialist is laughable, considering that he views the war between Ukraine and Russia as a distraction from the quote-unquote real enemy. He would rather the U.S. imperialist project target China or continue its projects in the Middle East or some other country attempting to throw off the shackles of neoliberalism. These quote-unquote anti-imperialists claim to oppose Ukraine due to the presence of neo-Nazis, such as the supporters of Stefan Bandera and the Azov Battalion, while promoting, platforming, and supporting individuals like Alexander Dugin and Tucker Carlson, who are fascists in their own right. In this manner, they oppose fascism, where it is weaponized by the United States and NATO in their imperialist projects, but they support fascism, which is opposed to U.S. liberalism. This is not to say that the American Communist movement should not oppose liberalism and U.S. NATO imperialism. We certainly do, but in doing so, we do not opportunistically embrace fascist, reactionary populist, and campist rhetoric, but rather criticize these tendencies from a principled Marxist viewpoint, using the analytical tools of dialectical and historical materialism rather than the metaphysics and idealism of racism, sexism, LGBT phobia, and reactionary nationalism. Genuine Marxists should rejoice in the deplatforming of fascists and should desire that fascists be deplatformed not only from the media and the internet, but from life as well. The world would be a much better place without fascism and without those who masquerade as Marxists while being fascist in disguise. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will catch you on the next video. Dinky Kang, out.